The government of India is very closely monitoring the probe into the crash of Air India's flight number AI 171 that happened at Ahmedabad a couple of months ago. Media reports said the government is very determined to thwart any attempts to influence the probe or to sabotage the probe. There are reports that Boeing company, which is the manufacturer of the ill-fated Boeing 787, which crashed at Ahmedabad. We don't know about its details, but certain things are appearing in the media and they cannot be dismissed lightly. Prima facie, many media reports said there are enough reasons to believe that it was because of the faults of the aircraft that the crash occurred. And the fuel flow to the engines of the aircraft have been disrupted without the knowledge of the pilots. Meanwhile, Western media have been publishing reports alleging that the pilot of the ill-fated plane and the co-pilot were responsible for the crash. They have even published conspiracy theories saying that the one pilot wanted to commit suicide. There are even reports that about their connections with certain gangs which wanted to sabotage the flight. But there are no clinching evidences to prove that. It is in this context that the action or the reports of Western media becomes intriguing. So this is why the government of India is very particular to prevent any attempts to sabotage. Meanwhile, there was an attempt to threaten the head of the AAIB, which is the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, which carries out the probe. Now, let's get into the details of the whole issue. Welcome to Insights. I am Hari Kumar. As I said, there are prima facie evidences that show that it was because of the faults of the aircraft that the crash happened. Why I say so? Is this my inference? Absolutely not. Because many reports, many experts have pointed out that there are at least 3 or 4 evidences that point fingers towards the faults in the airline in the aircraft. For example, the full authority digital engine control, which is a system that manages the engine's performance, was found faulty. This is one very important aspect. It was because of a faulty full authority digital engine control that a Boeing 787 aircraft developed problems in Osaka in 2019. That aircraft belonged to All Nippon Airways. The fuel flow to the engines were stopped because sensors gave faulty indications to full FADEC system, and because of that automatically the flow of fuel to engines were stopped without the physical interference of the pilots. So such an incident had happened earlier. This means that there is something wrong with the FADEC system of Boeing 787. Then there is another important aspect. It is the fact that one of the black boxes of the the ill-fated aircraft was found to have been damaged, and that black box was taken from the tail of the aircraft, which was not actually damaged during the crash. Actually, the plane fell nose down. It nosedived, and the front part of the plane was completely damaged, and it caught fire also. But still, the flight data recorder that was kept at the cockpit part was not damaged, and authorities have been able to download information from that flight data recorder. But when it came to the flight data recorder that was kept in the tail part, it got damaged. It proves that there have been some kind of fault with the power systems of the aircraft, and it was because of that that the flight data recorder caught fire. So this is another important factor that points fingers towards the faulty aircraft. Then many people point out that the RAT or RAM aviation turbine came out before the crash. It means that the power supply has been disrupted before the crash. That was why RAT started functioning. So, but it was of no use because the aircraft couldn't, control, and it crashed. It all happened in less than in a few seconds. So this is another factor that points fingers to the faulty, mechanical setup of the or systems of the aircraft. So this is another important prima facie evidence. Then there are reports that the ACRS system, which is a part of the communication system used to interact with the ground control stations. Then the satellite communication system, which is often used to communicate with the air traffic control stations and the airlines operation centers, were not functioning. So all these point towards some system, some faults of the aircraft rather than fault of the pilot. Just because of the some parts of the preliminary report submitted by the investigation team to the government was leaked out, media is jumping into conclusions that it was because of the fault of the pilots that the aircraft crashed. In that record, it is heard one of the pilots asking the other who switched off the fuel supply to the engines, and the other said, "I don't know, I didn't do it." So now it has become very clear that it is because of a mechanical fault or a cyber attack. A very famous cyber security expert who had studied many such incidences and who is based in Thiruvananthapuram. His name is K.S. Manoj. He has pointed out to those factors, either systemic faults of the aircraft or a cyber attack, and that could be the reason for the crash of the aircraft. Now the government of India is very seriously studying all those aspects. Now, in the context of the rigid stand of the United States taken against India nowadays, and the effort of the US to deliberately blame India in each and every incident, the government of India is very keen that the investigation or probe into the aircraft crash should be carried out without any lapses, without any loopholes. The investigation report should be submitted without any loopholes. So the government is very particular about that. The government doesn't want anyone to influence the investigation team. They don't want the investigation team to jump into conclusions based on half truths. So this time it has become very serious. The investigation will be totally impartial. Nobody will be able to influence the investigating team. In this context, we need to, raise eyebrows or think about the allegations that have been raised against Boeing by their own employees in the past. There have been a few occasions when former employees of the Boeing alleged that there was complacency in ensuring security of the aircrafts. And if somebody raises such allegations, the practice of the Boeing is to throw them out, to oust them. And two whistleblowers have been found dead under mysterious circumstances. Their families have approached US courts in that regard. And investigations are now going on. Of late, a strike is going on in Boeing company. A workers' strike is going on there. It means that there is something wrong with the whole company itself. There is something wrong with the management of the company. In order to increase profits or maintain profits, the Boeing company is not bothered about security aspects. Security scrutinies, checks were not being done properly. This was one of the allegations raised by a former employee. Now there is a strong demand in India that India should be very particular when or scrutinize very closely when any Indian aviation company purchases a Boeing aircraft. And many experts in the aviation sector have advised aviation companies to opt for Airbus aircrafts rather than Boeing. Actually, India is one of the biggest customers of this Boeing air company. If India decides to stop purchasing Boeing aircrafts, that is going to hit the Boeing company bad, very bad. So in this context, I am sure that from now onwards, Boeing cannot expect any magnanimity from India. India will be very keenly implementing every law in the letter and spirit, and if anything is found wrong with the company, they will have to pay hefty fines. For example, under the present laws, the Boeing will be compelled to pay a compensation of at least $150,000 to each of the victims of the crash. So it means that the company will have to shell out huge sums. And if it is found that it was a faulty aircraft that caused the crash, then that is going to affect the company's reputation. Boeing, in fact, there have been many incidences involving, you know, mechanical damages or issues with the aircraft. For example, in 2013, lithium batteries used in the aircraft have been found faulty, and there have been incidents of fires. The entire fleet of Boeing 787 had been, grounded during that time. So I think India is going to be the nemesis or comeuppance for the Boeing company. It has started, and the government of India will not leave any leeway. Meet you with updates. Till then, goodbye.